I shot this 45-second video for my Instagram page, and it completely convinced me that timecode is the only way you should be syncing audio if you have someone talking on camera and you're recording that audio externally. Have you ever felt so strongly about something that no matter where you find yourself in life, you keep coming back to it? An inescapable draw to the things that fill you with purpose. I believe everyone has a story so unique, it has the ability to impact the world in an immeasurable way. It's amazing what can happen when you look at yourself in the mirror and see yourself in the best light, drowning out the critical voices in your head with ones of encouragement and passion. The root of who you are and what you're passionate about is instinctual and grounding when you lose track of why you're here. I want to be the mirror to reflect the best version of you and your story. And I think that's my why. So I got my filmmaking start way back in 2011, 2012, right around the peak of the DSLR era. I was inspired by Reverie by Vincent Laforet, and I assumed, like everyone at the time, as long as I could get my hands on this coveted DSLR, I too could make movies. Very quickly I learned there's a lot more that goes into making a movie than just having a beautiful big sensor and a lot of bokeh. Enter my obsession about all things audio. Going into 2020, that was something that I dedicated my entire life to when it came to productions, figuring out how to capture the best sound on camera, figuring out how to capture the best interview quality. All of the things, I was going for it. Back then, I also knew nothing about timecode or syncing audio for that matter. I grew up in the generation that was like, oh, I have Pluralize, Premiere Pro, Final Cut, Resolve. They can sync everything based on waveform. What do I even need timecode for? Well, so that video I alluded to earlier, that was the thing that convinced me. And part of that all happened around the fact that I recorded a video in my office I am in right now. And there was audio sync drift that would have happened if I had relied on waveform versus timecode. And the whole reason for that is the physics and the way sound works. You know, if your camera is all the way across the room and the mic you're recording with is right there, there's going to be an obvious delay between the audio recorded right next to your mouth versus what your camera's going to pick up. And I imagine that there's got to be some sort of a very smart algorithm involved in preventing a lot of this audio drift from happening. But in my experience, that video was, one of few times that I've been using timecode and incorporating it into my workflow. And it kind of blew me away because the timecode sync was not the same as the waveform sync. In fact, the waveforms were actually visibly misaligned in that clip in the audio recording versus the video recording with that audio track. So all that to say, I started diving into this a little bit more, and Philip Bloom did an incredible job making a whole video about timecode using the Deity and Tentacle Sync and other devices, and goes into way more depth than I can do justice to today. But I'll link that somewhere if you want to go check out that video. It's amazing for me to see, as the tools become way more affordable and approachable for people, to see timecode being the next thing that people are going to start utilizing in their everyday productions and making things exponentially easier to work with. I think back, I had a Sony a7R III back in the day, and while it technically had timecode, you had to set everything manually, and it was kind of clunky, and I'll be honest, there wasn't really any reason for me to try and figure it out. But with, picking up the S1H a while ago, spoiler alert, last year I got the Sony FX3, which I'm shooting on right now. Being able to use timecode in those cameras, especially with a professional audio recorder like the Sound Devices Mix Pre 6.2 that I use for all of my commercial work, that is just going to take things to the next level and allow me to use it in more situations than I previously would be inclined to. Because now syncing is going to be exponentially easier. And I get the added benefit of those legendary Sound Devices preamps, which, not to discount, I mean, right now I'm recording my audio directly into the FX3, and I think it sounds fantastic. From my experience, I believe it was Panasonic was one of the first companies, to my knowledge, that was able to utilize the flash sync port on all of their mirrorless cameras. I think starting with the GH4, maybe GH5, but also in all of the S series, S1, S1R, S1H, and they shipped with a flash sync port to SDI converter cable. So you could do SDI timecode in on all of their mirrorless cameras straight out of the box. Now I wish, the FX3 had the same thing, but with their release of their, I don't even know, it's a long convoluted name, but their SDI to multi-port cable, now it's super easy to get that same timecode functionality in a camera like the FX3, which, fully kitted out is still coming in well under that, $10,000 mark, which used to be the baseline to get timecode in a camera. So that's something that's pretty awesome from my perspective as a filmmaker. Being able to have the lower end tools are now starting to get a lot more of those higher end features, allowing more people to make the jump from independent content creator to fully fledged filmmaker by being able to incorporate themselves either on a set as like a C or a D cam, or just being able to level up their productions in general with better audio, better multicam, all of those things. From a practical standpoint, I wish I had all of this timecode stuff last year. I had a wedding that I shot with a friend, and we ended up shooting across 3 or 4 different cameras. And while the final result ended up being okay, it would have made my life a whole lot easier knowing that I could have had everything in frame perfect timecode sync. And also it would have made me not stress as much about making sure that I had everything, perfectly set up, making sure my audio levels are set. I've definitely had a couple of very close calls with productions where, I'm using an on-camera shotgun mic, you're running a gun and you're moving, and then you go, take the mic off because you're in studio and you forget to change your audio levels, and then all of a sudden you're trying to sync your audio, but you have the tiniest little waveform and it's just not working, and then you're sitting there trying to, line up someone's words with what their mouth is doing. It's chaos. Thankfully, I've not had anything too crazy, but that definitely is something that is kind of sitting in the back of my mind, and why something like timecode is, it allows me to relax at the end of the day, knowing that even if something goes disastrously wrong with my in-camera audio or something, I know that I have that backup and it's going to be in perfect sync with what we're shooting. So while most people today would associate timecode with a timecode generator, like something from Tentacle Sync or Deity, I'm sure there's others on the market. Those are the only 2 coming to mind right now. Back in the day, timecode was generated usually by your sound mixer. Most professional sound recorders have really, really frame accurate timecode generators built into them. And what they would do on set is at the beginning of the day, at lunch, usually, 1 to 2 times throughout the day, they would jam the timecode by plugging in that recorder into each one of the cameras on set to make sure that everyone was synced up across the board to that accurate timecode, especially considering that what we're trying to sync to is the audio. That kind of all makes sense. It's something in the back of my head that I've known all of the Sound Devices Mix Pre series have timecode in and out. But one of the things that I was really struggling to figure out a workflow for, and I honestly haven't been able to find anything else on the internet talking about this, is the idea of being able to jam timecode from the Sound Devices Mix Pre series. They're quote unquote entry level recorders. Definitely still not super cheap, but I would say I've had mine for about 2 years now, and it is 100% one of the best purchases I've ever made. Being able to take that 3.5 millimeter jack out and timecode sync that with all of my cameras, I figured it has to work. So I was at my local camera store last year, and when I was walking through one of the aisles, I saw the Tentacle Sync logo, and I was like, wait, I didn't know they had all this stuff here. And it turns out they make a cable that is 3.5 millimeter to SDI. It's designed to be used with their timecode generators to, attach and sync. But in my mind, I was like, oh, for $20, this might be a good option for me to get that timecode signal out of my mix pre and send it to my S1H. And sure enough, wouldn't you know, you plug in the 3.5 millimeter to SDI, SDI into the flash sync cable adapter, plug all of it in together, turn everything on, and the S1H just automatically, as long as you have, I believe it's timecode synchronize in setup, just automatically takes in that timecode and runs with it. And it's, I've double, triple, quadruple checked everything. You can reset the timecode and plug it in just to watch it happen in real time and know that it's happening. But once you do that, that's it. Jamming timecode on the S1H is absolutely one of the most easy things ever. Same thing with the FX3. All you do, plug in all your cables, you're ready to rock and roll. This also works perfect if you're trying to do any sort of multicam with audio sources involved, because now what you can do is jam all of your timecode, record all your audio into that audio recorder, and then you're off to the races. No having to worry about syncing things in post. You just click, timecode, done. I think that is arguably one of the best things you can do to start thinking about leveling up your filmmaking. Okay, so overall, I hope this has been helpful for you. Timecode for me has been a monumental shift in the way that I think about approaching shooting videos and being able to level up the quality of content that I'm delivering both here on the internet and to my clients in real life. So if this was helpful at all, please, like, subscribe, share, comment, do all the things. I am doing my best to keep up with comments and everything. I absolutely love what everyone has been saying, and I appreciate all of the support. You guys have no idea how much this means to me as someone who has been dancing around the idea of doing YouTube for a very long time. The support is overwhelming, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next video.